right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, thanks a lot, Ken, and thank you for tuning in to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh. You can give us a call tonight, 412-575-2600 is the number. We're talking about the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger. We got some injuries to talk about, and the guy I'm going to be talking about this with is Paul Zeise, sitting right next to me from the Post-Gazette and the Fan. And Paul, Ben didn't practice yesterday. He didn't practice today. Are you concerned at all? Because I'm a little concerned. Maybe you pushed a panic button tomorrow, but he said we'll see tomorrow how he feels. But the fact that he didn't practice today leads me to believe there's something more to this.
Well, there's obviously a chance he might not play. That's the biggest thing. I think you wait till tomorrow, though. I mean, the thing about Ben Roethlisberger and any of these veteran guys, he's played enough football that he doesn't need to practice every single way. I'm sure he's doing all the mental reps. He knows what the game plan is and all that other stuff. So, to me, tomorrow, if he doesn't practice, that's probably a problem. But we'll see. I mean, it was an elbow thing, and what is he saying? He got hit at the end?
Yeah, the second to last play. He played it, and he got hit.
Okay, so, who knows? I mean,
hasn't thrown a ball yet this week.
It could be. If he hasn't thrown a ball, maybe there is something. Maybe there's a little bone chip or something. You never know. But I would not worry about it till tomorrow. Now, if we're talking about this tomorrow night, because are you going to be here tomorrow?
Bob's actually going to be here tomorrow.
Well, I was going to say,
yeah.
we would do 3 days this week. I'll be here tomorrow night. If we're talking about this tomorrow night, then it's a problem. Then I would agree with you. It's a real problem.
But I still think someone like you just mentioned, with Ben Roethlisberger, even David DeCastro, even if those guys don't practice tomorrow, there's still a chance, like Tomlin would say, leave the light on. There's still a chance for those two guys.
Yeah,
if it's Josh Dobbs, it's a different story. But those two guys could play.
I would even say if it's James Conner and he misses a few days of practice, they probably are going to go with Ridley or one of the other guys behind him because he's young. Ben Roethlisberger's been in the league 15 years. He probably knows the offense better than Randy Fichtner does. You know what I'm saying?
So, yeah, he might not need to practice. I guess it's about timing.
Here's the thing I will say, though. Watching him in these early games the last few years, he probably does need a little more practice than they're giving him. He probably needs a little more work in the preseason than they're giving him because he always seems to be rusty early on.
Yeah.
People talk about Le'Veon Bell last year to start the season not being so – but you know what? Ben wasn't that good either early in the season last year.
The whole offense wasn't any good.
So, to me, I think maybe he does need a little bit more practice, but he's a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I would be willing to bet that if he just throws a little bit tomorrow, just shows that he can throw it a little bit tomorrow, they'll probably wait till game time to make a decision. Now, if he doesn't practice tomorrow, then me and Bob tomorrow night will be having a much different discussion. And then all of the people that said Josh Dobbs should be here instead of Landry Jones, well, we're going to find out real quickly.
Could potentially in the first game of the season.
Because, I think the Chiefs are going to score some points. So the Steelers are going to – I'm not saying they're going to score, 38 like they did last week, but they're going to score some points, which means the Steelers are going to need to score some points to win this game.
Yeah, the problem with the Chiefs is they can't stop anyone from scoring points.
No, they can't, which would make it even worse if Josh Dobbs plays and they only score 17 points or something.
So this offense could look like Josh Dobbs under center and B.J. Finney playing guard. That's potentially what it could look like for this first game.
And James Conner playing running back.
And James Conner playing running back.
So you're missing essentially three of your starting 11.
And three of your best players on offense.
Exactly. So
B.J. Finney has started against Kansas City before, and he's started in the NFL before, but he hasn't worked much on the right side. And that's one of the things that we were talking to him about today. But he said he feels comfortable. They rotate him through. So that could be something to look out for, too, him being on the opposite side of where he's used to playing.
Again, to me, I think this game ultimately comes down to, is Pat Mahomes the guy that everybody thinks he is after 1 week?
But if it's him against Josh Dobbs.
But what I'm saying is he that guy? As we saw tonight, of course, I could sound stupid because I don't know what's going on right now, but, last week, people were ready to put Joe Flacco in the Hall of Fame again.
I don't think that he put him in the Hall of Fame.
I'm just saying, they're down 28-7 as I'm driving in now. Maybe it's different, but I'm just saying, they're down 28-7. I'm like, he looks like the same Joe Flacco to me. So I always say, wait till the week 5 before you really start making decisions and determinations on what a team is and what a player is in the NFL. Because I think the first 3 or 4 weeks, teams are getting to learn how to play together. You know, the younger guys are getting incorporated. The free agents are getting incorporated. It takes 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, football is the ultimate team game. It really is. It's a game that takes a lot of time, really, for a team to gel, which is why a guy like Le'Veon Bell, the longer he's out, I think the harder it becomes for him to get back into the swing of things. That's not to say he can't. But if this offensive line is blocking for James Conner for 8 or 9 weeks, you know, James Conner is a hit-the-hole, downhill guy.
Different runner.
Now, all of a sudden, they've got to adjust to Le'Veon Bell, who is a real patient, wait and see, and then go kind of guy, you know. And especially if you lose a couple of games or tie another bad game or something, and then, you know, he comes back in week 10, and you've got a stretch of 3 weeks that you need to win, and you've got a guy coming back into the mix who's trying to learn how to play, that could be enough to make you, you know, miss the playoffs because you lose 1 or 2 of those games that you needed to win.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned right now. I think Ben Roethlisberger does play on Sunday. I think he'll practice tomorrow. That would be my guess.
Are they saying it's a bruise, or what are they saying?
No one's saying anything. It's a right elbow injury. It's not a bruise. I don't know what it is. It's a right elbow injury.
It'll be like remember when we had broken toes, according and Mike and Cowher's like, he doesn't have broken toes.
I mean, it sounded like Tom was like, no big deal.
Right.
But, and even yesterday when we interviewed Ben, no big deal. Yeah, and he's talking about Kansas City. Well, today he misses. Now it becomes kind of a big deal.
So that's 2 practices this week.
2 straight practices.
So
Hasn't even thrown yet this week.
So if he doesn't throw tomorrow,
then I think.
I mean, it's hard to believe that he'd be ready to play.
Well, because the timing. He knows the offense, but the timing is, I think,
just that. If he's not even able to throw.
Well, he can't.
2 days before the game, you know, unless they're going to, like all the movies when they show in football, you know, they're shooting up quarter zone and stuff and getting guys out on the field. Unless they do something like that, how is he going to be able to throw on Sunday if he can't throw Friday just even light? How's he going to throw competitively on Sunday?
Well, we got to get the break. Back with your phone calls, 412-575-2600, and maybe some tweets. Back in a couple minutes.
The Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call is brought to you by Ireland Contracting, Pittsburgh's #1 home exterior roofing, siding, windows, and gutters.